Before we put our next guest on, I leave her off for a second because I don't want to put her in a situation where she has to comment on anything. But you know how I feel about the Justice Department. I feel like it hasn't been doing its job, but there is one person there who is really kicking ass, and it is Harmeet Dhillon. She is the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, and her division is moving rapidly. And yesterday we saw in Minnesota these protesters come into a church. This is a clear violation of the FACE Act. This is what the FACE Act was made for. And so I wanted to talk to Harmeet because she was on the phone yesterday. She was working on this all day yesterday, and I just want to hear where we are on it. Harmeet, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Glenn.
You bet. Listen, let's start with the FACE Act. What happened yesterday? They say this is because, I guess, the pastor is also somebody that works with ICE or something. Is that true?
So I don't know if that's true or not, but the pastor you saw on television calmly dealing with Don Lemon in his face is not. I mean, he's the lead pastor, and allegedly there's another pastor there who wasn't there on the scene yesterday. I don't know anything about that. We're investigating all of that, but let me say I was actually, it's a kind of a holiday weekend. I was on a plane back from giving a speech in Florida when the Attorney General reached out to me and alerted me to this situation. So she's actually been engaged with this from the beginning. And I immediately activated prosecutors and FBI agents to go to the scene and start investigating both the FACE Act as well as related criminal offenses that could include conspiracy charges, material support, and many others. So we don't prejudge, but I think it is fair to say that I saw multiple federal, criminal incidents yesterday, and there will be charges. It's only a question of when can we get a judge to sign off on arrest warrants and exactly what the charges will be.
And those judges have to be in Minnesota, don't they?
They have to be federal judges in Minnesota, and I have to go in front of them, so I'm not going to, say what what is on my mind sometimes. But let's just say that this isn't Texas, and we aren't getting exactly rapid fire support for charges there on the pace we would love. And people need to understand that there could have been arrests yesterday if Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, enforced his own laws, and Mary Moriarty, the District Attorney of Hennepin County, enforced her own laws. Instead, we see Keith Ellison being interviewed by Don Lemon yesterday, expressing his support for the victims of ICE. So we know exactly nothing is going to happen over there. So you have to understand the federal government has to jump through some additional hurdles. It isn't our job to enforce state law, and we're stepping in to do this here when the state refuses to enforce its own laws.
So I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but, looking back at the Shays Rebellion, at the beginning of our country, the laws in, where was it, New Hampshire? I can't remember where it was. But the courts were not working. They were being obstructed by people on the streets, but you couldn't get anything through the courts, and the system just broke down. And while it's not just the people on the streets, the court has been hijacked. They are not following through on the law. The same with the district attorney, the attorney general, the governor. So is this a case for the Insurrection Act?
Well, I think I agree with the premise that law enforcement and law and order have broken down in Minnesota. I mean, I'm personally suing the state over their breakdown of their voting rights laws. I'm also investigating Mary Moriarty for systematic violations of racial discrimination in her plea agreements. I'm probably now, given the inaction by local law enforcement on some other fronts, going to open up another investigation into the failures of the local police there to do their job, or do it only selectively on the basis of race or politics. And so it is a breakdown. But I mean, in terms of the Insurrection Act, I'm not an expert on that. I do think that you are seeing multiple incidents of violence. And I do think that the attack on the church yesterday, thank God for the pastor who was so calm and the godly people inside that building. It could very well have tipped into violence very quickly. And that would have been regrettable. But what are people supposed to do when the last place the place of sanctuary, the house of God, was invaded by these thugs. And so I think that certainly some more law enforcement, whoever's doing it, would be most welcome in Minnesota.
It is. It was disturbing to see them come into the church and very frightening, quite honestly. And I just think Don Lemon is just one of the most irrelevant human beings on the planet. I would like to say, I think of him as an irrelevant guy, but I actually don't ever think of him. So it's even more irrelevant than that. But I'm not sure if he was in violation unless he was part of it. Do you go after the journalist that's reporting it, or do you view him as something that was not just reporting it?
Okay, well, I'm going to reserve comment on that specific fact pattern, but let's just take a hypothetical, okay? A hypothetical where a podcaster, once a news anchor, is deciding that he's learning of a crime in progress. It's a bank robbery, okay? And he's friends with the bank robbers, and he sympathizes with them because he agrees with what they're going to spend the money on. So the bank robbers call him because they'd like some PR because they think what they're doing is great, whatever. And you decide to go along, and you know that the group of people you're with are breaking into a building and they're going to commit a crime inside, and then you're going to stream it inside. That fact pattern is much more dubious than how you put it. And so I think we're investigating our facts. Mr. Lemon has put several hours of video on the internet yesterday saying a variety of things. And I would, if I were his lawyer, I would probably say, that maybe you should lawyer up before you do things like this. But yeah, I
have to tell you, I just have to make an aside here. Harmeet, for anybody who doesn't know who Harmeet Dhillon really is, that would have put the fear of God in me. If I were Don Lemon and I heard Harmeet Dhillon say that, I'd be like, holy cow, I'm going to prison, because she does not mess around. But it's good. He
did see some of my tweets, and he responded to them yesterday in a video, mispronouncing my name and laughing and saying, this is the First Amendment, people. Look, I have actually litigated this. I've represented, as you know, Glenn, a number of conservative journalists over the years, including pro-life journalists. I will say, as an aside, Kamala Harris had no problem prosecuting a pro-life journalist, David Daleiden, for exposing Planned Parenthood's fetal part trafficking. The United States Department of Justice under Merrick Garland had no problem prosecuting multiple January 6th protesters who had their cameras out and were filming and claimed journalistic privileges. Exactly. Yeah. So I don't want to
become them, but I do think he doesn't understand the First Amendment. Yeah. He doesn't understand the First Amendment. He has videos out there literally saying, F ICE and F all the way off. So there is no pretense of objectivity or what have you. But look, facts matter, and we're going to take a look at the exact facts there. But gosh, she keeps talking and adding to the record. And one of the organizers of this event, who he was outside kissing and bringing coffee to, is a lawyer, an NAACP lawyer, a Black Lives Matters nonprofit lawyer. So, the lawyer should have known better. This is, you just cannot, a privately owned house of worship, house of God, is not a public forum for protest in the United States. It just isn't. It's actually a violation of Minnesota law to do exactly what these thugs did. And so, we are just all over it. There may be charges coming in different stages, but charges are coming. Tell me about the investigation into Tim Walz and Jacob Fry. Email sent out on Friday to all Minneapolis employees implying that they are working with protesters within the city to help them track ICE operations. Tell me about this investigation.
I only know it secondhand because my office is not the folks in charge of that. That's the criminal division. I believe Todd Blanche has commented about that publicly. But it is not legal to conspire to evade federal law enforcement, or obstruct it. I will just leave it at that.
the governor saying he's going to put National Guard into yellow vests. Does that not indicate that violence is coming to ICE, and you want to make sure that people know that these guys are on your side, so don't hit the guys in yellow?
I mean, violence is there. Violence is in the city. I mean, ICE is being obstructed in the state from arresting sex offenders, child sex offenders. These people are absolutely wink, wink, nudge, nudge, signaling to the resistance in Minnesota that there's an us versus them mentality, and it is okay to be against the police and against law enforcement, federal law enforcement, and get in their way and get up in their face. And frankly, I think it is blood on their hands that people have already been injured and killed in Minnesota in this so-called struggle because people think this is a video game or something. You know, it isn't a video game. This is real. And when you threaten a law enforcement official, the test is an objective one. Did the law enforcement official reasonably fear for their lives given all the circumstances? And all the circumstances right now are that state officials in Minnesota are effectively putting a target on the backs of federal law enforcement with their rhetoric, with their actions, and people are getting hurt.
Harmeet, I did a monologue, I think, last week, and just went over the positions of power that had to have known or turned a blind eye to all of the corruption. And it is extensive. This is not about putting Somalis in jail. It is an extensive list to make that happen. Are you familiar with anything, how that investigation is going? Are we going to see anybody held responsible for that? Because there's a lot that need to be held responsible.
No, I agree. But listen, let's talk about the timeline here. This DOJ has continued a number of investigations and secured 62 prosecutions so far, convictions, I should say. There are other ongoing prosecutions going up. And what you do typically in federal law enforcement, even state law enforcement, is you get the lower level criminals and then you go up the food chain. So when there's plea agreements with these people, they have a requirement typically to cooperate with federal law enforcement. And I can assure you that you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. So the rhetoric out there from, my allies who are like, oh, nothing is happening, there'll be no arrests, LOL. That's not true or fair. This DOJ has actually, first of all, sticking to the attacks on houses of worship. We in the Civil Rights Division, under Pam Bondi's leadership, have convicted numerous people for attacks on Christian houses of worship, on beheading a statue of Mary and baby Jesus, and thwarted several attacks. And on the Minnesota fraud front, numerous convictions, numerous investigations. Now we're dealing with this. And it's a target-rich environment. And we're dealing with, frankly, some judges on the bench who slow roll signing arrest warrants, who don't agree with the politics, and who don't, frankly, agree with federal law. And so we have to then get wrong rulings and then go to the Court of Appeals and get those corrected. It's just a process. And I know people are impatient and they think, they want to see arrests every day. Keith Ellison and his team could have arrested people yesterday, and they didn't, and we all know they won't. So we're stepping in to do it. I literally flew two prosecutors from my office after talking with the Attorney General yesterday. She's 100% behind this. We spoke to the pastor yesterday. We praised him for his calm. We gave him some reassurances, and his congregation asked them if they needed any support. They're victims of a crime. They're victims of several crimes. And we will not let this happen to another church in the United States. It is un-American, unacceptable, and there is a zero tolerance policy for it at this DOJ.
Harmeet, as always, thank you very much. Harmeet Dhillon, she is the DOJ's Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. Her division is kicking ass and taking names. Harmeet Dhillon. Don, you should probably learn who she is before you make fun of her, because it could go dicey. Sounds like it could get dicey for you.
Thank you for thinking for yourself and being part of a movement, because that's really what all of this is. If you want the full story, you want to go deeper, go to blazetv.com/Glenn. Go there right now, sign up, no interruptions, just the truth, uncensored and unfiltered. Don't just watch, take a stand. And I'll see you over there in a minute.